good morning to everyone who has joined to this event from different countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. It's a great thing for a pleasure to share with you part of what we have built and we have wanted to achieve throughout these almost 8 years of joint work in the region. But these are achievements that we would have achieved without the participation and commitment from all the bioma and all the member countries of the park network, clerks of the protected areas, parks, forest rangers, communities, leaders, both men and women, representing governments, international cooperation, representatives, and different stakeholders that joined this big effort and this big objective to preserve the biomass beyond borders so that it would not only be a dream, but we could make it stronger every day and make it a reality day after day. Very well. Today's agenda will have three different moments. We'll begin with the welcoming remarks from the institutions that participate in the project. After that, we will have some time. It'll be an inspiring time where the younger generations will talk to us about that change we want to be for our planet. And finally, we will have a panel. It will be a conversation to deliver the results where we'll be approaching some of the most representative topics of the project, some of the achievements. We know that we could be talking more time throughout the day about the achievements. We don't have enough time, but we want to give a sample of what the project implementation was like in these almost 8 years of joint work and the achievements and takeaways to continue to strengthen the Amazon vision and the park network. I'd like to take advantage of the opportunity that it's possible that at some point in time we will experience some intermittence in the transmission, given the conditions of virtuality that we are living. We want to ask you to be patient while we restore the service and reconnect. And then on the other hand, I also like to remind you that in the social networks of the Amazon network, you can make your contributions with the hashtag Together for Protected Areas. Okay, let's start with this meeting. We'll be listening to Tobias Bierman, Agri of the EU delegation in Colombia for Environment, Planning, and Employment. Welcome. Very good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? First of all, warm greetings to Alan, Roberto, Gabriel, Andrea, and Peter, our presenters to this event. And of course, more welcome to all the stakeholders, the implementing partners, FAO, WWF, IUCN, UNEP, those of you who have joined this event today. I also want to send greetings to Francisco, the new ambassador of the EU, who was appointed as because of his leadership to defend the environment, and with his charisma knowledge, he has inspired us always. And he represents EU, Colombia. He represented Colombia at the EU. Some things about the integration protected areas of the Amazon biomass or bioma. This project financed by the EU and the park network. So it's a very important day because it's not only national effort, these are protected areas that go beyond borders. The EU, international relations always want to establish solid links with all the regions in the world, especially with Latin America. We have common interests about biodiversity conservation, sustainable use of natural resources, restoration of forests, and transmission towards green economy, just amongst others. And how we do this in Latin America? Well, because why? Because of these elements are included in a new policy of the EU, that is the Green Deal, the new development strategy of the EU. Part of this Green Pact or Green Deal is the protection of biodiversity from here to 2030. This biodiversity strategy brings specific measures to tackle the climate change and transform these 30% of the lands in Europe to turn them into protected areas. We are very happy, we're very pleased that many countries such as Colombia also have the same goals to have 30% of their lands as protected areas. Also very important is not only the zones or the areas, is to create ecological corridors between those zones. And I think the transnational networks correspond or answer well to the park network so that we can integrate the protected areas into the continent or throughout the continent. The EU recognizes and acknowledges the main character that the communities play and the local communities and the role they play in protecting the areas and to preserve the ecosystem. It's at the strategic point in our continent or in your country. In this case, the Amazon biomass is recognized as a territory of great ecological value as well as cultural value for the world. And we all know that this ecosystem is at big risk of disappearing unless we take concrete action hand in hand with the communities, then also with the civil society. So the project, almost in these 8 years of implementation, brought efforts, ideas, and experiences together in this territory, in the countries that share the Amazon. We, the EU, will recognize and value the work carried out by the project in regards to the integration of protected areas at different scales and all the work that IAPA does for the project. Rely on the EU as your partner and your friend of the park network to continue contribute to these processes to strengthen the network in the Amazon vision. It's a big challenge, but together we can impact positively on the future of our region where people, protected areas, and protected areas will be the main character. Have a great event and warm greetings from the EU. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tobias. Now we continue with the remarks from Alain Bohanic, FAO representative to Colombia. Welcome, Mr. Representative. Well, good morning to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be able to share with you this closing event. And I want to send my greetings to Tobias Grimam, also to everyone in the EU, everyone who's been helping with this project. It's very many people who have put their grain of sand, or more than a grain of sand, their contribution, the big contribution to make this project effective. We are living heritage. We're living a better organization of parks in the Amazon countries. And we definitely have had an impact on the conservation of this very important world ecosystem. I also want to send my greetings to our colleagues from the Park Network, WWF, IUCN, UNEP. I also, Francisco Vera, I also want to greet Francisco Vera, the Simbiosis group, whom we'll be listening to later today. And I want to tell you all that this project throughout these 8 years, I was in Brazil before, representing there. And of course, the project was very active in Brazil. We held a lot of events, also in the other countries where we have actually showed our presence. And it's been much more than visualizing the importance of the Amazon basin, much more than visualizing the importance of national parks, protected areas. It's been specific actions. These have been translated into better actions, more actions. We've tackled very critical topics, for example, financing protected areas to look for alternatives, also management, the management plan, how to manage protected plans, how to improve the quality of those management plans, how somehow we can learn from other experiences. So each country has contributed, each unit of the project has had some impact. So it is very satisfying, very satisfactory to us all at FAU to be able to support, to have articulated this articulation amongst countries and efforts. We know that there is still a long way to walk, and we know there are spending challenges the challenges as to how to combine conservation with development, the demographic pressure on the protected areas, even illegal crops in some countries. We know that the issues have not all been solved, but we have contributed with a lot, and we also know very well the kind of approach that we need to adopt is approach based on the communities, based on social participation, on local investment as well. That will not depend so much on international cooperation, but rather is a challenge where we all must assume our responsibility, take on our responsibility
biodiversidad a nuestros descendientes, ¿no? Entonces,
to leave a better heritage for our descendants. So it's a big responsibility, and it's everyone's task. It's a task that from everyone who's been working on this area, and also to continue to create that awareness, to continue to create the foundations so that we have a true conservation, and every time we can achieve bigger goals, greater goals in conservation. In that sense, FAO's commitment is to continue to support that initiative. Also, FAO's commitment is there to continue to work hand in hand with the park network, with all the institutions that have been cooperating, because we have a lot to do ahead of us. But yes, the results that will be presented today are satisfactory results of several years. Of course, the issue of conservation is not a thing that will work every other year, but these are things that require continuous, permanent work, and really, really important, really relevant. So we'll continue to support our initiatives, alternatives, we'll continue to articulate, and the commitment of these goals, make these goals a reality, is to achieve at least 30% of protected areas in the Amazon. And with all the management plans, all the rigorosity it takes to manage natural resources. Once again, I'd like to congratulate you on the work, all of you who have made these results possible, those of you who are present as well as those who are not present with the project anymore, but they definitely contribute to the results we'll be listening of or knowing of today. So very warm greetings to everyone. Have a great day. Thank you very much, Mr. Representative, for such inspiring words and the commitment from FAO to continue to work with the park network. We have Roberto Niña, the National Commissioner of Protected Areas from Mexico and Regional Coordinator of Red Parques, the park network. Good morning, Claudia and everyone. Warm greetings from Mexico. Well, it's a great pleasure to talk to you again. A few days we had a meeting with this project, about this project, and okay. Hopefully this will not be a closing or closure, but just a review of the good results that we have achieved so that we continue with the next stages, more initiatives to consolidate this one and so on. It is a call, it's experience to innovate, to continue, because as Alan put it, this has just started. This has just begun. Now, when Alan and Tobias were speaking, I would say pretty much the same. I just want to ratify that. And in that spirit, I just want to specify a couple more things. Speaking about the general coordination, we are about to have a meeting with all the coordinators of Red Parques, again, the park network. I think it'll be face to face in a couple of months, 1 or 2 months from now. Everyone's invited. I just want to ratify that natural protected areas are an instrument. It's a beneficial, effective instrument, and the positions and proposals for actions based on nature that are already being assimilated in social economic policies throughout the world, right? The presence of nature-based solutions is a discourse that has fortunately become part of many places, the policies of many places. It's even reached public policy. We believe that natural protected areas will be more and more necessary every time that in the next 30 or 50 years, we will have to strengthen them in such a way to be able to contain the pressure there is on natural resources. With this pandemic that hasn't ended yet, and with the economic situation, the world crisis, the world situation, and the recovery, coming recovery, we see the recovery of the activities, and there's a greater demand of natural resources from all natural resources. There's a great pressure in that to resume economic activity and to recover what we call to pay the debt, to stabilize the economy, the production, and so on for the recovery in social terms and economic terms. There are many events where we see that there's a big need, there's a great demand, and natural protected areas make a big contribution to be able to pay back, to contain, to hold, to assimilate a lot of the pressure and balance it all, if the word can be coined in that sense. And in that sense, in the health case, it's been proven that deforestation, a lot of activities that have eradicated ecosystems and habitats, they're a true and possible cause of health issues in this case. I want to insist that, as a matter of fact, the Amazon is not only Brazil. As a matter of fact, they make important contributions that is beyond the borders. And okay, with the pandemic, we have the importance of technical financial cooperation. We see it firsthand, especially if it comes from the whole world. We are basically all facing the same situation with the view we have every time to preserve while producing and produce while conserving or preserving social inclusion, ownership of the communities, empowerment of communities, local communities, their responsibility and co-responsibility that we all have. And that's it. Warm greetings from the Secretariat of Environment. She shared a note with me yesterday. She's been paying attention to this topic of the integration of Latin American countries, in this case, with the park network and the cooperation and the contact and cooperation with the EU in this case. So let's continue to move on, and we are ready. Very good day to you all. Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for your kind words, and they are very inspiring as well. So we see the need to continue to work together around this park network that's been almost there for almost 40 years of joint work, and most likely it'll continue to work with the support of all the system of protected areas, cooperation, of course, all the stakeholders that are here today. Next, we'll be listening to Ana Isabel Martinez, coordinator of the project management unit at WWF Colombia, who's been one of the implementing partners during the project execution. Welcome, Ana. Thank you, Claudia. Warm greetings to Tobias, Alan, and Roberto, my previous speakers. Very inspiring words, just as Claudia put it. Warm greetings to all of you who are following this transmission of this IAPA project closure, our office directors, WWF, Colombia, Peru, Brazil, Ecuador, and Bolivia. Send all of them, send warm greetings. It has been very satisfactory for WWF to see how the Amazon vision of the park network that has been developed by the Amazon countries in the framework of the work plan of the agreement on biodiversity has been implemented. The action plan has been a great success, and as how they have advanced the different actions. In the Bariloche Congress of the WWF has been supporting this initiative, and that was how in 2014 they began to implement the project National Solutions to Climate Change. It was financed by the BMU, and then with the support of the FAO as the technical secretary of the park network and the other members of the IUCN and the other members of the project IUCN, the environment, we implemented these two stages of the IAPA project. It's presented with big challenges, but also with big achievements that we want to present to you. I'm sorry, she's reading too fast. we were able to work in the great beyond borders. We were able to work with strategic partners, thinking of territories, thinking of the landscape where the conservation is promoted, and conservation is one more stakeholder in at the local level. We were able to work with the local governments, with economic sectors, productive sectors, local governments, and the planning sector in each country. We face big challenges that is continue to call these big sector stakeholders to think about the landscape articulating territory, not only looking at these as protected areas, but we are protected areas in a landscape that we can support and improve the quality of life of the population that inhabit it. Which is one of the things the national systems of protected areas, Minister of Bolivia in Brazil, National Natural Parks in Colombia, Minister of Environment in Ecuador, Suriname, Peru, the coordination of Red Parques and Mexico. You are the stars in this work that we are presenting today. Without your commitment and work, this project wouldn't have had the results we're presenting. At WWF, we continue to support and contribute to the Amazon Vision and the Park Network, so rely on us as a partner and one more line for the Amazon Vision and the Red Parques. One great everyone. Good event. I'm sorry, she's reading too fast. Thank you very much, Ana Isabel. As a matter of fact, the main characters are the systems of protected areas, and especially in the Amazon countries, that was the first group of work, but it's been increased throughout years, and now we have the members of the Park Network. Next, we'll be listening to Andrea Busto from UN Environment. She is the Environmental Governance Coordinator of this regional office for Latin America. Welcome, Andrea. Thank you so much, Claudia. A very good morning from Panama City, the headquarters of the Office of the United Nations for the Environment, UNEP, especially for Latin America and the Caribbean. Very warm greetings to everyone, all the members, everyone who's present today. This event, we want to greet the countries and project partners. We want to thank you for the opportunity of working with you in this very important topic for environmental agenda and sustainable development of our region. Is integration of protected areas of the Amazon biomass, contributing to strengthening the regional initiative, Amazon View of Park Network. The EU, Tobias, I want to thank you especially, recognition for the sustained work and close cooperation of the EU with the region in Latin America and the Caribbean and the countries in our region in the biodiversity agenda, in this case, but especially the environmental agenda and sustainable development, and special recognition from our side to the great work of the team that has been doing this IAPA, what it's been doing throughout these almost 8 years of the project with the highest standards of commitment and professionalism, and especially in these last times, in this last year, almost 2 years that we have moved from the pandemic where there have been so many challenges for the work in the field. All of us who are here today conversing, we know that the conservation of biodiversity is key to face what we call the triple planet crisis: climate change, biodiversity, and pollution. Biodiversity loss, I guess you meant, and the national protected areas represents one of the most valuable instruments, most efficient instruments to preserve natural richness and the cultural richness of our countries. Since the first Congress, has been more than 20 years, and the countries in our region have made progress in efforts on to protect intact areas, well as to restore ecosystems. And then they've seen that it is possible to create a network that helps to revert the loss of biodiversity, to hold it, to keep ecosystemic services, the essential ones that support the societies and especially the communities, local communities, to adapt to climate change, reduce the risk of future pandemics, and achieve sustainable livelihoods. So we know very well that the protected areas are managed successfully. Es que me están llamando de la portería, sería que llegó el computador. In the context of the UN for the protection of ecosystems, which started officially on June 5th this year, the World Day of the Environment. So Globally, we're able to realize that we have achieved the objective of coverage of protected areas that we set in 2010. The quality must improve though, but we need to assess and we want to value the contributions of this very important regional project precisely to be able to improve management of protected areas within a regional approach, as it's been mentioned before. And especially to conclude, please allow me to highlight the opportunity we've had at the UNDP, especially, I'm sorry, UNEP, to show the contribution of protected areas, how they have helped achieve the SDGs. It's been very important, valuable work, and we hope that we can help position management of protected areas, and they should be at the center of the agenda, not only the environmental agenda, but also the development agenda of our countries. Given all these reasons, it's been a great pleasure to work with you all, to continue to work with you. It'll be a great pleasure to continue to work from our office. Thank you very much. Congratulations for the project, on the project, and I encourage you to continue to work in favor of protected areas in our regions and in the world. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea. We'll continue to work together in favor of protected areas and to achieve the SDGs by 2030. We'll continue with Peter. Peter Valdiero is a Force Officer of FAU for Latin America and the Caribbean. Go ahead.
Desculpa, tinha que aprender meu micrófono.
I'm sorry, my microphone was not on. Good morning, everyone who has joined the meeting today. I want to greet the EU, represented by Tobias Bierman, the institution that has cooperated with us, has been allied to be able to develop specific and important actions throughout Latin America to improve the livelihoods and promote conservation of the environment. I also want to greet our colleagues from WWF, Ana Isabel Martinez, also from IUCN, Gabriel Quijandria, also from UNEP, I'm sorry, Andrea Brusco. All the partners that have contributed with their knowledge and expertise along this project to preserve the Amazon, and of course, the Red Parques, the park network with Providencia, with whom we work very closely to promote cooperation amongst countries to protect their natural protected areas. Today, the Amazon has called us, the tropical forests have called us all. It extends throughout 8 countries in their territories, and it covers close to 7 million square kilometers. And it represents one of the most important tropical forests thanks to its biological richness as well as cultural richness. But there are expressions that threaten the well-being of many species, many communities. We know that more than 3 million people, almost 20% of the world's population, cannot have a healthy diet, and part of that has to do with the health of our ecosystems. While we live this scenario of climate emergency, in addition to the current context of the pandemic, there are very many questions that we need to ask ourselves as human beings who inhabit this fascinating planet. At the same time, it's a risk. What we live is a race around against the clock, against climate change, against deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and the well-being of people. So it's unthinkable to take on this challenge without the cooperation, the teamwork, and the multi-sectorial partnerships. This is an example by an initiative that has focused on strengthening the Amazon vision of Red Parques, the park network, a joint vision of conservation that invites us to think about the Amazon as a big territory where there aren't borders. It's been almost 8 years to continue to promote the work agenda with protected areas and other conservation measures. to train more people,
intercambio de experiencias y
promote
facilitar
experience exchange, and facilitate the implementation of activities in the territory for its protection.
Esta es un
Our
aspecto
proposal
social
is to
innovador
bring
para
innovative
multiplicar
ideas
alternativas
together
sostenibles que
for
garanticen habitar
sustainable opportunities to inhabit a better planet.
un lugar irreemplazable.
The Earth is an irreplaceable
Nuestro compromiso hoy es
planet.
a
Of
trabajar
course, our
por una
commitment is
mejor
to work
producción, una mejor
with better
nutrición,
production, better
mejor medio
nutrition,
ambiente y una vida
better
mejor.
environment, and a better life.
Quisiera terminar esta
I'd like to
primera
end
intervención
my comments
agradeciendo a
by
Francisco
thanking
Vera
Francisco
y el
Vera
grupo de teatro Simbiosis
and
por hoy.
the Symbiosis group, theater group for today. Thank you.
I think we lost Peter. Probably the connection failed. He was about to finish his remarks. Thank you so much, Peter, for these words encouraging us to conserve the Amazon and in general the whole planet. So now I pass on the floor to Sornitza Aguilar. She works at IUCN South America. Good morning, everyone. Hello to all of you who contributed to the IAPA project. The implementing agencies, stakeholders in the territory is a great universe, and we are so happy to be able to participate in this process. Governance of protected areas is a complex process when there are high biodiversity and culture. They bring new complexity levels and a lot of success. And this is what we can strengthen. So IAPA has contributed to those barriers and has helped with articulation between countries, systems, and be able to promote this exchange in protected area governance. This is one of the most important results that we have had of all this process. Virtual on-site courses have had a great result in protected areas. There is great public with a lot of knowledge and experiences in the continent in general and in the Amazon biome. Work on contributions in protected areas in SDGs was also promoted by IAPA project with a lot of participations of professionals linked to conservation, and this is something else that needs to be highlighted. Throughout this work, many perceptions about contributions in conservation spaces to continuity of those processes life depend on, and environmental services establish new paradigms that let us highlight these different moral and points to conserve those natural areas in the planet. We need to contribute the IAPA project to the governance of the Amazon region. Since 2010, as the Congress that we had in Barcelona in 2008. In 2017 and 2019, there was this dynamic of this governance group through strengthening processes and to good governance in protected areas, and also to strengthen the work plan in protected areas in the CBD. In this second stage, IAPA project brought the community, it is strengthened the working group in Amazon Vision. So there was a system for the learning of these communities and also helped in the conservation in protected areas in those conserved territories. There were new experiences, new protocols. It has been an honor to be part of this, to contribute in the strengthening and solidification in this instance. And this plays a very important role in conservation in territories. In IUCN, we are so happy in the results, about the results, and to be able to contribute with our project. So we will continue with this task in the everyday activities in IUCN. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ornitza. Very important contribution by IUCN and all our implementing partners. We finished this part, and I'd like to thank the representatives, our partners, because of their words, and to be here with us today. their experiences and expertise. It has been very decisive to be able to tell this, what we have today. So we have the fortune of listening to three different voices, three voices that sound like river, trees, the forest. They speak about a generation in which real influencers are the ones that with their heart and their smile make this planet habitable. I pass on the floor to Francisco Vera, an activist leader for the environment and Symbiosis Theater Group, Art and Science. First, I like to tell our friends, those who are seeing us through the transmission, that we have our chat. If you want to make comments, we like to see people that we know, others that are just getting to know about the project, so that that's the space that we have to interact. We want you to share in social networks, hashtag Juntos por las áreas protegidas. So, Francisco, you have the floor and the theater group.
Magamazonas. No, más arriba. Magamazonas. Magamazonas. Ay, ya estamos al aire.
Are we already on the air? Oh.
Magamazonas. Muy buenos días y bienvenidas y
Good
bienvenidos.
morning, everyone,
A Magamazonas.
to Maga Amazonas, the bulletin of the Amazon. I am Bagri. I am the fish. Everyone knows who I am, right? Of course. The most famous, the biggest feline in America. Well, you could say the hunter, the narrator, by boys and girls who speared. You're gonna make me blush. You are the predator, the most important predator for our ecosystem. You are the jaguar, Jaguar. Did I say it correctly? Yes, you said it correctly, catfish. How are you, my jaguar friend? I'm doing well. I'm hunting here, hunting there, sleeping, protecting our habitat. You know, I'm in congresses, in conferences, in social networks, Instagram. I've seen you in many magazines and National Geographic and things like that. But we are here to talk about something very important. What is it? Our territory, our home, a home like no other, unique. There are guacamayas, there are dolphins, there are red faces everywhere. All this, a lot of green as well, a lot of green. Tell me what things were like before. My grandparents said that our home used to be bigger before. Now we've lost a lot. So much that thousands and thousands of kilometers have disappeared. Oh no, in the forest? Yes, something like that has happened to us in the river, but some things have changed and others remain the same. For example, those who travel and those who are interested in our home in the Amazon, they're still in the river to find their knowledge, flavors, and different interests. Yes, 8 countries, thousands of species. We are here to protect it. Yes, like we already told you, our territory has changed a little with years as years go by. Is that true? Yes, for 2039, we could probably lose between 17 and 21% of additional forest, more than what we have already lost. But we need to do something about this. Yes, we need to do it. We're not going to allow this to happen. No, of course not. No. And what is it that we are going to be doing then? Oh, I know. We are going to be working united for protected areas. If we work together, a connection between species, including the human beings, just one species, we can transform the Amazon so that it continues being the land that we all love. Oh, I know. And we already have a lot of special connections today, don't we? Yes, we do. So we're going to see, are we on the air? Oh, hello. Yes, I'm here. I'm on the air. Hello. How are you, Francisco? It's so nice for you to be here with us today. Is that Francisco? Yes, the Francisco I had told you about, the one who defends us so much. Hi, how are you? I'm doing great. How are you, Catfish and Jaguar? It is a pleasure to be here with you. Wait, Francisco, let me come out to breathe. Uh, Okay, Francisco, we are so happy to be for you to be here with us today. On behalf of all species of the Amazon, catfish, jaguar, fauna, and flora species, we want to thank you, Francisco. And we also have a couple of questions for you because we were dying to ask you those questions. What are those questions? We are in charge of providing news in the Amazon, right? So we wanted to ask you, what is the best news you'd like to wake up tomorrow in the morning? So if you turned on the TV and you saw Amazonas, what would that piece of news be? Well, the news would be that, well, all governments, all planet institutions, not only the ones that are in the Amazon, of course, but all of them could get together to defend and conserve species, the river, the Amazon River, and all rivers, and obviously the jungles in the world, because all of these ecosystems allow us living. You are the ones who keep the planet stable. So what happens is the Amazon has special characteristics. It's like a magic jungle. So a very good piece of news, to be concrete, is that tomorrow I don't have to continue listening about climate crisis in the whole planet. That plays with the present and future of thousands of species and my generation as well. Children, young people in the whole world. Yes, Francisco, we would be so happy to get those news. Okay, how about we practice for it? Good morning, inhabitants of Earth planet. Today is a very special day in Mag Amazonas. Our reporter, Francisco, is another place of the world, and he has a very special news because the Amazon has been saved forever thanks to the union of different countries, institutions, and species who'd like the best for them. What is the news? Oh, and we have to add citizens, government, and companies to defend. Let's repeat it again. Okay, again, our reporter from another place in the world has the best news. A very good idea is that he's gonna say it right now. Finally, governments, citizens, companies, and industries got together to have total conservation of the Amazon. This is what we hope, and that's our hope for us, boys, girls, adolescents, the whole humanity, all species, as catfish, jaguar, and many more. They trust on that special news that will allow continue living in this same home and continue recovering everything that we lose. Let's all of us get together. Yes, Francisco, thank you so much for this very special report. There is something else that calls us today, and that is to be together for protected areas. Be together for protected areas. So Jaguar was just telling me off cameras that he would like to be a little more like me because I'm trans-border species. I go for many, many kilometers throughout my life, like twice as much as wide as the United States. I go swimming and swimming, and Jaguar as well, many territories. So the invitation for all of you who have seen us today is that you need to turn into a transborder species. Beyond borders, we need to get together to protect our home. What are borders? Well, for us, borders don't exist, right? I heard humans talking about borders, but I don't know about that. Francisco, what invitation would you make to boys, girls from the 8 countries and all from the whole world, but those 8 countries that share the Amazon? What invitation would you make to them when there is a transborder species? Well, first of all, it is very important to keep in mind what you said, that borders are something like a simple concept that divides us. We have borders of all types, those borders that are unfair, those that are in conflict, those that are claimed. But beyond borders, this is just one planet. So when you're in the river, you catfish, you feel when you change from Colombia to Brazil, you don't feel that, right? It's because it's the same river. And a jaguar, do you change when you go from the Amazon jungle, from Brazilian to the Colombian jungle? You don't feel it, right? No, it's the same one. And the same thing happens with the planet because this is just one planet. There are many ecosystems that keep flows, life flows. They keep the planet stable. We break those flows, and human beings break those flows. So as new generations and change and transformation along with species as catfish and jaguar, we need to get together in flows that take conservation and the protection of species as yours and the Amazon as well. And of course, the message is that from anywhere in the world where we are, we can contribute and we can have an influence. Like they said from the very first intervention, we can have an influence on decision making related to climate in our planet. We need to think globally. We need to think about all deforestation, but we need to act locally. So we need to act in our territories that are in the Amazon, in the 8 countries that have such big jungle. And that's the message I want to leave there for you. Thank you, Francisco. Think globally and act locally. Okay. I need to think globally and I need to act locally. I need to think globally, I need to act locally. Oh, I understand now. Yes, that's what it is. That's such a nice sentence. Climate change is a problem that affects you, but also affects all animals in Asia, in Africa. And to solve those problems in deforestation, we need to think about specific species and how those specific species relate to climate change. Yes, of course. This is a small human who's very smart. Yes, I like this human being. We like you, Francisco. Thank you for sharing here in Magamazonas. We have another question for you. We are so curious, so we want to ask you about this. Francisco? Yes. How long and when did you start getting to know about these topics? A little bird told us that it's related with the Amazon. How did you start being interested in the defense of the environment? Unfortunately, it started with some news that was very worrisome, that is very worrisome. And it was the fires that there were in the Amazon some years ago. So they left many species in bad conditions. They they removed thousands of kilometers. I don't know, but so many hectares. And the same thing happened in Australia. I don't know if another bird that came from Australia told you what happened there, that it was very worrisome, that there were very big numbers, many lives that were lost there. And I got to know about that. And since I live so close to the Amazon in this country that has one part of this big jungle, you are more aware about this. But before getting interested in the Amazon, I also got interested in animals in general. Animals such not only domestic animals, but the exotic animals like chimpanzees, jaguars, bears. So those are endemic in Latin America and in general. So that's how everything started, with some news, and along with my classmates and everyone, we're going to change the news. And like we said, the news is not that it's on fire. The news is going to be that we are recovering, and basically we're going to be protecting many species. Because if we use the word saving, it is more anthropocentric, right? We human beings saving the planet, but we are protecting and reverting that distraction that we have caused on the planet. It threatens with our existence, with the permanence of our existence on the planet. Yeah, and species like you. Right, yes. I love that story, Francisco. Francisco. So just like you, there are many other boys and girls who were concerned about those news, and they started getting worried about the Amazon and the environment. But we also wanted to ask you, there are many people in other countries that follow you and who are watching us right now. What would you tell those people who know so much about us, so that they do not fail, they don't give up when protecting the Amazon? Because from my golden catfish, I would tell them never stop swimming. They need to swim all their lives, in spite of the fact that river conditions are hard sometimes. We need to continue swimming. So please let us know, what is your advice for those people who are watching us? I would tell you from my general perspective that they shouldn't be like me. What do you mean? They shouldn't sleep so much. They need to do their job. Oh, so keeping balance, just like you keep it in our ecosystem. So, Francisco, what would you tell those people from other countries who know about us so that they continue protecting the Amazon? Well, from the perspective of human beings, we need to move forward. We always need to fight for a better future, uh, and we need to be together. Those sectors that we talked about, governments, companies. Otherwise, if we don't do that now, if we don't make a change now, those generations who will live in the future, like us, we are going to have to face challenges. We're going to have strong currents in rivers, and we're going to have to be awake when you are not interested in that, right? Having problems with jaguars. And all species, like you said at the beginning, we are like the other species. What happens is that what has taken us to creating our own extinction is to feel superior. And not only amongst other species, but within our own species, or like about children cannot participate, or women, or those originary groups that are there in the Amazon. So that's what has made us to our own extinction. So we need to avoid that, and we need to join all efforts, political ones, economic ones, and to focus on that, on creating and building a biocentric society, one that places life and not economy on the center. So that's what we need to do. All species, that is the message, never to give up and to continue. Yes, we need to have these very important countries, and to many other people that probably don't know or don't believe. So that is it. Yes, Francisco, thank you so much. Well, I like what you say about biocentrism, life before all other interests. And we can do it amongst all of us. Yes, together in protected areas, and protecting beyond borders, like we said at the beginning. We all should protect beyond borders, is to be aware of the river that joins us, the most important river in the world. And besides the million forests that are vital for our survival, I think that's the key. I don't know what you think. So if you think more like our ancestors, accepting that we are what we are thanks to the river, the forest, we can remember that we are interconnected through this long element, the Amazon River. Yes, you know what? Sometimes speaking about this is very relevant about scientific data, technical data, but the truth is that human beings, we are built by simpler things, like, for example, empathy, leaving borders on the side, solidarity, being together, in spite of the fact that it's 8 countries, all the species are there. And probably this intervention, I don't know what you think about it, because it's very important to think about association, because because values are so important, like what was we were taught before. So this is what we see as humanity. We forget this, and we are just damaging life and so on without stopping, right? So this must stop here now. And that's what basically is. If we're not going, otherwise we're going to have a worse crisis. We cannot forget that there are so many stakeholders, all of us present there to start protecting. There's so many stakeholders. We cannot leave anyone out. People, animals, communities, the special authorities, indigenous authorities, environmental authorities, protected areas managers, international organizations, tourists that admire without destroying. We're all there. Jaguar, me, Catfish, you, Francisco, we, yeah, they, young people, yes, boys, girls, those who admire you, and those who follow your voice, because at this moment, you represent, I dare to say that you represent a complete generation who is asking for a change. Here and now, we have no time to wait. We need to have that change now. All right, and now to finish, what message do you want to say goodbye with before we say goodbye in the magazine? Well, I want everyone to be connected with the news, of course, Jaguar and Catfish. good news, bad news, sometimes with a lot of hope. So we need to continue acting, and of course, in general, joining everything we've talked about. You need to move forward. That was the message that we shared a few minutes ago, that they need to have integrated borders and that we can fight for a biocentric society. This is a message for absolutely all the sectors. And we can guarantee a present and a future to present and future generations and having a dignified life, because this is so important. In the future we might not be able to do it the same way we've done it in all these years, like if natural resources were infinite. Francisco, I want to say that I have a word that I learned: biocentric. Biocentric. I'm gonna go tell my community, my catfish community. I learned a new human. Oh, okay, goodbye. No, no, we haven't finished. Francisco, before we go, which is your favorite animal? Catfish, catfish, jaguar. No, it's jaguar. No, it's catfish. No, of course I have the longest in the water. No, but I'm in the social networks, but you're not. Well, I know that I'm not so famous as Jaguar, but I'm here, but I am presenting the magazine. Both of you are. Well, thank you, Francisco. You are also our favorite human. I said from my heart. And our slogan, Francisco, let's say goodbye together from this magazine. And let's say 1, 2, 3, together for protected areas. Wait. I need to breathe. Oh, yes, Jaguar comes to my river and he comes out and he comes in and he comes out. Okay, so when I say 3, we're going to say together for protected areas. Are you ready, Francisco? 1, 2, 3. Together. Let's say it again. You were going to say something, Francisco? No. I was going to count. I count 1, 2, 3, and we say together for protected areas. 2, 3. Together for protected areas. Very well, Francisco. Thank you so much. I hope you had fun in this interview, just as we did, and we'll see you in our next episode of Mag Amazon, the magazine of the Amazon. See you next time, friends. Thank you so much, Francisco, our catfish, Mr. Jaguar, for bringing this space that we enjoyed and we laughed. Those messages that Francisco sent us that encourage us to continue working for protected areas. The call to governments, to communities, to all stakeholders to continue protecting the Amazon. And this important call because the change is now. We already know it. So thank you so much for this space. It'd be worth for all of us to get to know about the news, about the planet, the news that we want to wake up tomorrow morning, the positive news that we're going to have for the better future for future generations. So we enjoyed this space. We have comments in our transmission from all those people who are participating. And after having this inspiring talk, we are going to start with our panel. For this, I'm going to invite Paula Bueno from WWF Colombia, Veronica Mendieta from Red Parques, Pilar Roman from UNEP, Walter Cano from IUCN, and I will represent FAO. I also want to invite Jose Antonio Gomez, the moderator. He was the coordinator in the project, and we are so happy to have him here today because his contributions, his knowledge, his experience will last today and always. And there have been very important legacies. We already finished that phase in the project, but we always have Jose in our heart, and we continue with his teachings and his experience. Jose Antonio, I pass on the floor to you so that you get together with all these friends in the protected areas in the region. And we are our moderator. Go ahead, Jose. You have the floor. Hello, Claudia. Thank you so much. I was saying in one of the messages that there is no doubt this is a very important moment for the Amazon, for protected areas in general, in Latin America and in the Caribbean. With these words by Tobias from the European Union, by our colleagues from UN Environment, of course, from IUCN, from FAO, WWF, our partners who have built this tissue. This is a proposal that brings other stretches. It brings other paths that have been developed and have been implemented throughout these many years. And of course, this proposal, very important regional one, which is Red Parques. Red Parques, with more than 40 years, is still this network that calls and strengthens and makes this work dynamic in Latin America and, of course, in the Amazon region. Roberto Aviña, I want to say hello to you because of all these contributions and his work. Just like them, our colleagues who provided this motivation with Francisco's voice and with the representation of all these emblematic species from the Amazon biome. Permanently, throughout many workspaces, life spaces, they have contributed to keeping this strategic region for peoples, for species, and of course, for the whole world. So right now, his voice is cutting. We're going to have a conversation with colleagues who have participated these years in developing many of the activities. So we would like to work with this space in 3 different moments. One moment related to strengthening capacities throughout the work this year, what is related to cooperation activities, how we've had that cooperation, not only that cooperation at international level or regional level, but also at the local level, and everything that is related to advocacy and visibility. So how from these proposals from IAPA and the Amazon biome, we have contributed to important achievements, and how it has been possible to make this work visible at the local level, regional level, and global level. So for this, we are going to have colleagues with this first topic that we are going to have Paula Bueno from WWF, Veronica, and Red Parques, and Walter Cannon, IUCN. And before passing on the floor and talking to them about these topics, there is a poem, a Cuban poem by Maria Lonas. Probably many of you have read her. There is this beautiful book that is called, these are tales about animals. And there is this one that has this big challenge that says, oh, okay, we're going to do with so many feet a very little path. So what we want to show in this conversation, looking about the centipede poem, is because the centipede has thousands of feet that go through the Amazon and protected areas. So I'm going to start with Paula. And I'm going to have this question for this first block that is related with everything, with strengthening capacities. But before starting with this question, with this conversation with the colleagues that we have here today, we want to share a short video about the work, the results of the project throughout this year. This vision was promoted by national parks, other protected areas, red parques, and the main objective is to consolidate the ecosystem view for conservation of biological diversity of the Amazon biome that contributes to manage protected areas and to keep goods and services, integrity, functionality, and resilience before national process in the context of climate change. As a contribution to the Amazon vision in the Parks network, and thanks to the UE, the European Union financial support, we have this project from 2012, a IAPA project, coordinated by FAO and executed with IUCN, WWF, and UNEP. So we strengthened at the regional level national systems for protected areas of the Amazon countries and Latin America and the Caribbean. These contributed to implementing the Amazon vision and the Red Parques objectives to comply at the regional level of the IT goals on the CBD and the SDGs. Along with the implementation of both stages in the project, there was a construction of a series of products to make decisions, to plan actions in the Amazon biome. This project is just a reference as how a knowledge exchange, the integration of different key stakeholders to improve governance processes and effective management brings innovative solutions that are financially stable in the future. Some groups had communication bridges between staff members in protected area servants that participated in different training groups. The technical cooperation in these groups brought regional products with national inputs and participative methodologies. The IAPA project prioritized areas on the field to push conservation areas for governance, financial sustainability of protected areas with this forecast approach beyond borders. The North landscape is between Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. It is in the National Park Mapaya, the Reserve Cuyabeno, Huepi National Park, Iropai Communal Reserve, and Wimeki Reserve. So this initiative was born in 2005 that is called the Tri-National Program in the Protected Areas Corridors. And in 2011, we had this memorandum of understanding. In this area, The IAPA project was inserted in this concerted agreed program. The South Landscape, Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru areas. We have the Manuripe Reserve in Bolivia, Chanles Park, Casumba Reserve in Brazil, Alto Purus National Park, and Purus Community Reserve. And this is within the framework of the project. Regional meetings conducted throughout the IAPA project promoted the articulation to consolidate the Amazon vision as well as the leadership for technical cooperation and the integration of protected areas in the biome. Strengthening Red Parques as the articulating institution and with political advocacy was one of the main objectives of this project. Associated work by the network with the allies is an expression of the importance and the technical regional cooperation to push collaboration processes between countries to achieve national and international goals as the Sustainable Development Goals and the Aichi goals. So these visibility actions, the scope, the progress in the IAPA project, and the European Union role and partners were very important to be able to have the main role in protected areas to conserve biodiversity and the fight against climate change in the Amazon biome and Latin America in benefit of human well-being. Threats and challenges faced by the Amazon today seem not to end here. However, we know it's thousands of stakeholders that join their efforts to have a conservation of one of the most important biomes in the planet. Thanks to the everyday work, government willingness, and the international cooperation, there are so many good practices that surround the region and thank their natural heritage and cultural history.
Muy bien, muy inspirador también este
Very inspiring
cuento del esfuerzo y del trabajo
to
colectivo
have here collective work throughout these years. So to strengthen capacities all these years, and particularly the past 2 years, and within the framework of the pandemic, there was this very interesting work, knowledge, along with the Latin American School for Protected Areas. WWF has been part of this process, not only within the framework of the project, but as professors, those that have accompanied contents for training. I want to ask you, Paula, why do you think that courses that have been taught were welcome, this very important welcome in these current contexts? What do you think? What elements do you recover, you take to be able to acknowledge these training spaces? They're not important only for the Amazon biome, but for the Red Parques. Thank you, Jose. Thank you for being in these spaces. You have said it. The challenge, or well, this is a challenge because it's a very high bar to be able to develop these courses. There is also something that is very inspiring. It is this need for us to deepen in our knowledge, but also in our competences. And I think this is something key in this process, training process, because we were not only thinking about contents that could be diverse, innovative, but in the end, they could bring competence to manage that our objective, are public, those experts in protected, they have in the everyday life. Something key about the success of this program, from my viewpoint, is that they were organized under the guideline, expert guidelines responsible in the protected areas systems, with the support of working groups in red parques with national and sub-regional coordinations. So we were able to identify specific needs for training so that courses could be focused on what protected area systems needed. It also responded to territorial needs. There are two very important viewpoints to implement programs such as the protected area work group. They're key. There are many pieces that we could have taken. However, that expert guideline oriented through a methodological guideline, and I want to acknowledge especially the Latin American School for Protected Areas. So this is focused on knowledge and competencies. So those that were linked in different courses, this is something that began in IAPA. And of course, we have those needs that change. So probably general topics, sustainable, the places and landscape, they are together in time, but specific needs, what we need to understand better in terms of technologies. We have this dynamic for the courses and curricular building. So this is part of the success. There are dynamics, but there are also solutions in territories. So it's worth saying that this is a contribution from project to the Amazon countries. This has a scope through all Latin America. So this is one of the big contributions to build capacities. We exchange knowledge amongst regions. We are not so different. We have common problems, but I emphasize on solutions, common solutions. Through these programs, through these courses, we can jointly build. And the last thing I want to mention is that in the end, there is this process when we share knowledge. We are the ones that organize, and we're behind the logistics, the curriculum, so on. But this starts out from live knowledge these experts have. They are the ones who are in the everyday managing protected areas. This is it, Jose. And I want to thank you for your inspiration about that image that you have behind you, right, Jose, so that we can be knowledge, we can be libraries, we can have practical application libraries of everything that we see in books. Thank you, Paula. Just like Paula presents it, the development of capacity strengthening couldn't have been possible without the participation of Red Parques. We have Verónica Mendieta from Red Parques. She has participated throughout all this time to consolidate working groups. I would like to take advantage to ask you, Veronica, why do you believe that these processes with work groups can be a reference for other regions? Africa asked for the possibility of exchanging that model, particularly these groups. So why do you think that these could be a reference for working in other regions? Thank you, Jose Antonio. Thank you for the invitation and congratulations on this event. Well, I want to tell you about a key message mentioned by Paula, based on common solutions. We share extraordinary biodiversity, we have social and cultural contexts that are common. So without these key stakeholders that we need to involve, in protected area management so that it's sustainable, just, fair, and equitable. So having this identity, the countries in the network, we have common challenges and solutions. Red Parques has had this long trend of exchange, how we organize, and work groups are one dynamic modality. The network advances thanks to that with the regional coordination. Like I said, work groups, when we have the capacity strengthening program, was coordinated with them because they know about the territory, the needs there. So thanks to those groups that are very dynamic, led by different countries, some countries come in, some countries come out, depending on the dynamics of protected areas. That's how we have some activities in the Red Parques. So this one-to-one dialogue, I mean, bilateral change on tourism, smart tools, depending on the topic, the coordination facilitates spaces, but they are the ones who say, this is what we need, these are the stakeholders that we want on the table. So the network is very dynamic and we are very active. So those who don't know about Red Parques, I welcome you to the website, we'll share it. So the question is, where these work groups start? We have tourism, post-2020, knowing that we have these global goals, sustainable tourism, sustainable financing. So this is the idea for these groups not to be individual, but they need to work on each one of the countries and they need to go beyond products and they can have open advocacy in territories. Not you, Costa Rica, what are you doing? No, this needs to be adjusted without having political government involvement. So we can share this, and we recently talked about what's missing. So we have this very regional vision, we have this dialogue amongst friends, we are very warm, our dialogue and trust, we need to start opening. It's not only Red Parques, it's to connect with other networks, are the heroes of conservation and the advocacy in different territories. That's what gives us work. That's what gives us worth, excuse me. So this is a reference. So this is what is done on the field. So I'm going to stop here and later I'll tell you about some of the results that we have had. Thank you. Thank you so much, Veronica. There is no doubt this working group, so to strengthen capacities, this is similar to our golden catfish and the jaguar that we saw in the representation. So the possibility of not having these to be able to exchange these capacities, this learning throughout all this time. So Veronica tells us about this, the joint efforts with methodological processes, training, in all different topics in protected areas, with this technical space through work groups, they turn into the scenario so that these spaces work and options and friendship to protect these areas. We're going to listen to a live testimony of this effort from work groups in that so that we have this proposal to strengthen capacities beyond borders, beyond the Amazon for Latin America, that it goes to protected area conservation, to their territories, the communities where they are. I am Clara Rocio Burgos Valencia. I am a professional in tourism in the national parks in Colombia. So yes, this training course is born with the different interests of the participants of the network. And we acknowledge that all countries that participate have strengths linked to tourism. And within the framework of this team and along with IAPA, this training course is built. So we see that we have these tools to plan, to organize touristic activities in our protected areas. There's been progress in some countries related to zoning, related to planning tools. And in other countries, they are the expectation. How have you done it? Because we have not had the success of being able to acknowledge those tools. We've been able to see the positive points they have and topics to improve, but we have realized that within the framework of experiences, we've been able to build and to get there in the contributions in implementing those tools. And we have been able to have interesting exchanges linked to planning in protected areas. With this course, we've been able to acknowledge these points, favorable points for us to grow, and we can expand to other topics. So experience exchange, well, I insist so much on that, but we have had virtuality, we've been together to share each one of these points and to share with what the errors we made.
Hola Luisfer, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo va todo? ¿Qué más de cosas?
How those errors turn into lessons learned, and how we have improved these tools to protect for protected areas. My commitment is to continue with the follow-up to this training, not only in my personal learning, but getting there so that they can learn a little bit about what they know within the framework of their personal experience and be able to improve all these tools, and so that this works for a conservation strategy for protected areas. We have these participants that has been built with Red Parques within the framework of IAPA project.
La Unión Europea, WWF, la UICN,
IUCN, UNEP, the European Union, FAO, all protected area systems that have, well, we've had this learning throughout these years. In these last years that we have emphasized on this process. There is this key topic, and we were in the past, we got together with colleagues and friends in this work to strengthen this governance process at the territorial level. So we identified and we strengthened processes in two landscapes: the South landscape, Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru, and the North landscape with the trinational program, Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. So within this space, we have processes to strengthen and to get to know governance. That was one of the calls, of the requirements for many of the technical leaders in these protected areas. So when building this, we have Walter. Thank you. Hello, Walter. And we have gone in different regions in the Amazon, and he has been there to support governance processes in these landscapes. I want to ask you, Walter, what is the contribution of these trainings that happened with leaders of the good governance in protected areas?
Bien, buenos días, José Antonio, un placer volverte a ver. Un cordial saludo a todos los colegas del proyecto
Good
IAPA.
morning, Jose Antonio. Good morning to everyone in this event. I'm going to go to the point very quickly. The contribution of IAPA through the governance project has been very useful at the protected areas level. There was this dissociation of perceptions between the regulating levels, the stakeholders, communities in the protected areas, and those who indirectly were affected. So at these three levels, there were conflicts in relation to the use of natural resources and the rights that they believe they have to participate in decision-making processes for protected areas. So this is the way traditionally protected areas have worked throughout the continent, in spite of the good the good willingness and wanting to manage these areas with all of those affected. There have always been these types of conflicts and dissociations. So training in governance has opened dialogue at three levels. First, there is training, knowledge, dialogue. There has been opening to reflect amongst actors that have been affected in protected areas. There has been an interaction thanks to training process for those mainly two stakeholders. And a third level that has been strengthened by the governance process is the interaction between countries at the landscape level. Knowledge exchange in the South area between the three countries has been so rich. Knowledge, how to face particular conflicts related to resources that are common through the three countries. For example, let's talk about hydrobiological resources, particularly in the case of Peru and Brazil. Acai and castaña in the case of protected areas in Peru and Bolivia. So the governance process has opened dialogue spaces. It has broken barriers that made these spaces difficult to talk about protected areas. So I think that in the second stage of the IAPA project, launching self-managed courses on governance and other courses on tourism, financial sustainability, and hydrobiological monitoring will allow that the first stage, what was achieved in virtual courses this year, it will prevail, and there will be a construction of common knowledge that will allow the whole biome and the whole continent can go through the manage, like Paula said, through common use. So there has always existed this idea that protected areas have been working as little islands in certain countries. Yes, because of the lack of coordination with other instances. Protected areas have worked in an isolated manner. So governance training has allowed establishing connection levels between protected area systems and other government instances to strengthen management and governance actions in systems and in protected areas. So I think that the training in governance is one of the most important results in the IAPA project. That's what we've been able to see throughout the continent through the webinars that has joined more than 1,000 people. So this is significant achievement. There have been contacts between protected area systems, between protected areas, so that they can start working differently. So we are articulating, and like Veronica said, the network is starting to work as it was expected, cooperating among regions and not only among certain ecosystems. Go ahead, Jose.
Varios temas que sin duda hacen parte como de esta
You
conversación.
mentioned several topics. In this conversation, you have had this trajectory in the region, in the Amazon, based on the IAPA project. To be able to identify and acknowledge this effort, good governance in protected areas, we can have a couple of minutes to listen to another testimony in protected areas in governance in the South landscape. I already mentioned, Walter mentioned, the border between Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru. I am Lydia. I represent the communities, and we are representing and promoting governance in Marine Reserve. Before the course got here to leaders, we knew governance, the word, but we didn't understand the meaning. We did not apply it to communities, neither leaders nor bases. I was a leader and I represented the communities. And when I got this invitation from IAPA through the Maui Reserve, they told us to participate. So when we had the first event, we went to the workshop. It was very important for me as a woman, as a leader, to understand the meaning of governance, to work with experiences from other countries. So that was very important. It really helped us to see what's missing and what we already have in protected areas. It has helped us to be able to help our local stakeholders and explain to them what the capacities were, to train them and to explain to them about the benefits of governance in protected areas. We are taking advantage of promoters. We are having these when we have congresses, we have this small training, and we are training young people, young leaders. They were not interested in learning. They were not interested in learning about leadership, about governance, because they didn't know about that. So we are training them so that we can have leaders in the community, so that we can keep this new governance in protected areas. We need continuity. We need to have more trainings for leaders so that we can train young leaders, and we need to have continuity so that we can continue training, because every day new leaders are born. And if there is no way to train them, if there's no capacity to train them, they would be lost. I mean, this work would be lost. It would be in vain. Well, we have heard the testimony
compañeras de la reserva de Manuipi.
From Manuipi Reserve, the leader. This is real testimony of women's participation to build governance and to protect these areas. Just like them, throughout the whole biome, the protected area systems through Red Parques, there is no doubt the role of women, particularly to strengthen governance, turned into a central axis, this key element to advance in conservation, sustainable use, and territorial management processes. This is a lesson of learned life lessons. We shared with these women, we were there at the reserve, we got to know about their experiences firsthand, and to be able to be with their training processes. So it is very gratifying to listen to them. They continue with this process. There is no doubt this takes us to the next topic, which is cooperation actions in these. So in IAPA, to prioritize intervention landscapes where we could have these actions from governance, effective management, integration amongst protected areas, and so on. We saw this some time ago at the beginning of the project, some years ago. There were several landscapes, and we had very important exercises to prioritize these spaces, and we came to two territorial spaces. As we saw some time ago, the south landscape, the north landscape, and in these landscapes, we have promoted cooperation actions that contribute to these governance models and integrated management. To understand those processes and what has been built there, I'd like to invite Claudia Marin. She's been the current coordinator of IAPA project, and there have been important processes throughout all this time. When we talk about this topic, particularly from other measures, effective measures that are based in areas some time ago, when there were calls from regional actors and from the Amazon and from Latin America, and we started talking about ASOMEC some time ago, well, it was not seen as something so close, in spite of the fact that that was established in the COP decisions. So I'd like to ask Claudia, what actions are a priority so that countries advance? Thank you so much, Jose, for your question. Like what you said, and when you were in the role of coordinator, after COP15 on biodiversity, when was Declaration 14.8 from ASOMEC, countries were they wanted to have these dialogues at the Latin America, and we wanted to delve into ASOMEC in a specific landscape, and we selected South. And what we did is that we applied this quick tool with secondary information, primary information to identify OMEC. So that first tool, when we were able to identify different, I'm sorry, in the South, there are the extraction like castaña. We have several potential OMEC, and we wanted to strengthen these capacities to be able to work on these. To remember that ASOMEC are not protected areas, they are not new processes, is what other stakeholders are doing related to conservation. We have this map of the Amazon biome with potential and OMEC, and we have a tool online that is available so that those first steps can be applied for OMEC. Through this online, it is easy and we can say how far or how close we are being an OMEC, so how to be there with projects, so this would be close. So to focus, Jose, on your question, how can we support governments from different actions, how we can have different initiatives, and is to have different sectors in different scales. So we all know that OMECs go beyond National Systems Protected Area and is to include other stakeholders, tourisms. They have a potential to acknowledge these conservation effective measures, to involve them more, to support countries so that they are supported amongst themselves to establish those roadmaps to identify OMEC. So here I'd like to highlight the experience from Peru. In Peru, they have this work table with the Ministry of Environment, SERNAM, with NGOs, with other sectors in the government that want to work on this topic. They have discussed the criteria to identify OMEC so that they are within the needs of each one of the countries. So I believe that in the last trainings, and we in SETNAM and OMEX and the Ministry of Environment, they have offered to have this example for other countries in the region to advance in identifying and acknowledging OMEC. So we need to concrete that support by Peru. We know that Colombia is advancing, Ecuador, there are several countries that are advancing in this matter. So this is important through work groups. So have this on the table when linking other stakeholders, that is others that have an opportunity to make it, to recognize what they're doing in terms of conservation, not only with the global goals within the 2020 framework, but with conservation processes. And it's important for each one of the countries to define the incentives, why the civil society, why private stakeholders, why indigenous groups would be interested in recognizing OMEC and contributing to those goals, conservation goals. It is important to work on that incentive package to acknowledge OMEC and try to incorporate this topic within different projects. That is not only environmental projects in the protected areas, in the different initiatives we are used to working with protected areas. We in each one of in NGOs, the cooperating institutions, to involve this topic as other development projects, because we know that OMEC, they allow sustainable use. They have so many benefits for their communities, for their owners, so it is important to acknowledge them. So I believe that this is it. We need to continue supporting countries, but also supporting among themselves for this acknowledgement and to advance in the global biodiversity goals. Thank you, Claudia. I believe that this is a strategic topic. I was recently participating in a space called by the chamber in the parliament in Colombia. So there were different Colombian civil society organizations, and they were presenting there before the Senate these nature-based solutions. And the key example was the need and the importance of advancing with other conservation measures, joining other local stakeholders that conserve autonomously, that have made this great effort for conservation. And just as Claudia has pointed out, there are examples, there are experiences, Red Parques, as we saw with Veronica, and with the civil society, hand in hand, we can replicate them, we can advance. So within the framework of this axis that we have been talking about cooperation, another effort that we have had in IAPA is related to hydrobiological resources. Walter, when he was the chief of Parque Maruripe in Bolivia, and then later, now in IUCN, there was progress in shared management in hydrobiological resources. Communities depend, subsistence and their economy depend on hydrobiological resources at these basins. So I'd like to ask you, Walter, how can communities, how could you describe the before and after the South landscape that has benefited from this action? If you could please tell us more in detail what that process meant to build these governance agreements, and what we have from this process in these communities, and the proposals to continue in strengthening.
Gracias, José. Ciertamente el aporte del proyecto IAPA a
Thank you,
través de
Jose. IAPA contribution to strengthen hydrobiological resources management is in the following sense. Before IAPA project, communities used these resources freely based on their uses and customs.
Bajo en lo que es
We had a low factor in relation to population stability, talking about hydrobiological resources. But we realized that these resources, the dynamics that did not come from these regions, but linked many other regions in the Amazon basin. We have seen this with a lot of strength in Peru's region. Populations blamed that in the Brazilian side, because of the contract, they had discriminated use of catfish. In the Peruvian side, Brazilians said that Peruvians did not respect the limitations when they had it in Brazil. So lack of knowledge of these dynamics, I am speaking about the regulations, about the closures or the bans. So how to handle or see biological resources. So in Mapuripe, this management was focused to control an exotic species that was not endemic from the region, and that turned an predator of endemic species, native species. So these populations did not know how to control these species without affecting the water ecosystems with networks and other. So IAPA gave all this knowledge, governance criteria, and common management so that they could face and they could control these species and they could come into livelihood for the communities in this protected area. In Gurus, there is this great knowledge to be able to establish the conditions in populations in catfish on the Peruvian side, in the high basin, in the mid basin. So through this knowledge, the most affected species have been identified, what has a negative impact on these populations, and what been able to interact between Brazilian and Peruvian communities so that we have the first context and the first basis for a collective agreement for these. So in Peru's region, there is the most impact we've had as the IAPA project. There has been this important instrument. There's the fishing management project. Legalization before the authorities is going on, and this is the strategy to manage big catfish in Peru. So the main stakeholders are Charalawa indigenous communities. These communities have acquired great knowledge on catfish management from the perspective of shared management model. We have to acknowledge that both protected areas are open to allow participation of these communities when making decisions on protected areas, particularly on catfish management. Therefore, the before and after of the project in relation to hydrobiological resources is a substantial difference. Before, they didn't know how to manage the resource. They only had the traditional knowledge. Now, they have the capacity to interact amongst all actors that depend on using catfish. They are indigenous communities, traditional fish that have that live there in Puerto Esperanza. So this has been significant progress. I believe that with the self-managed course, we will be able to disseminate this experience throughout the Amazon basin. It has been shown that conditions and mechanisms exist so that there is shared management agreements, one of the resources that has been most affected because of climate change. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Walter. You touch on elements that are key within the framework of this conversation, and this is the cooperation in these landscapes have key actions, a vital resource for local populations and for their economies. This transcends, like you said, this transcends to public policy in fishing management plans, and this could turn into an example or a reference for hydrobiological management and shared management in several regions in Latin America and the Caribbean. Another axis that has been developed within the IAPA project framework is Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. A lot has been said about this. We have worked in several regions at long scales, country scale, continent scale, but lowering the scale on the analysis and acknowledging the contribution of these SDGs in ecosystems or specific landscapes like the North landscape in the trinational program, there was this collective construction that progressed with the leadership of UN Environment when measuring indicators to have an evidence of such contributions concretely. Pilar had to advance with the application and construction and adjusting this methodology. As an anecdote, important anecdote, and before passing on the floor to Pilar, when we got together to the SDGs for Latin America and we talked about the possibility of working at this scale, level of scale, they said it's so interesting, but nobody has worked in that. So I think that this is big contribution, and I'd like to ask Pilar, why do you believe that this action can be an example for other countries in the region, and revising this application of this methodology to the scale of this type of landscapes?
Pregunta. Creo importante destacar tres aspectos.
Thank you, Jose, for the question. It has been a pioneer process, quantitative analysis, and holistic vision of the landscape. About the pioneer work, There have been several analyses surrounding ecosystem services in protected areas and how these services interconnect several SDGs. These analyses have been conducted in a qualitative manner. So such intervention has improved quality of life of communities thanks to income because of ecotourism, or certain monitoring of the species has improved the knowledge by the community on the species. However, throughout this work, we have gone beyond quantifying the contributions of ecosystem services, other local initiatives to SDGs. Let me give you an example. In SDG 13, climate, it is calculated that the trinational program in the last 5 years has contributed with 195 initiatives and actions coming from protected areas, which promote inside the influential area strengthening capacities to adapt to climate change and natural disasters. So these actions have been executed, and we have control, surveillance, community getting together, gatherings, territorial, environmental education. All of this has been quantified. It is also mentioned what I meant about holistic vision. What this means is that different stakeholders have talked about the viewpoint of forest, governance, social systems, statistical points. So we've gone beyond environmental indicators, the ones that are related to protected areas, those that are calculated easily, especially with satellite images, those that are related to forest mass or the certification or water volume. So they have started talking. So we had this trans-border area with similar development views in the 3 countries, and they agreed that it was key to improve the quality of life of indigenous peoples, governance, and others. However, in spite of having this similar view of development, when analyzing and calculating, it was difficult to find the elements, the concept, the information, the relevant one that's comparable. So one recommendation in this process has been to align the statistical systems so that we can feed national plans. As an example of social environmental information that was developed, we have SDG number 1. And within SDG 1, there's this goal related to ensuring for everyone to have the same rights, economic resources, and access to basic services. It's been calculated that this national program, more than 1,300 people have had sustainable access to natural resources within the protected areas or within the buffering area. So this has been done calculating, well, many rates that are different in each country and in each protected area. Let me give you an example of La Paya National Park in Colombia. Agriculture is permitted, whereas in Peru it is not. Ecotourism is available is permitted in Ecuador, and it's good for the communities there. But Peru has the rights to have, for example, beef to the populations, so on. So all of this has taken us to calculate. It's been a complex process, long process. It's needed many heads thinking. So this process, along with reflection on sustainable development throughout borders, searching for information, relevant statistics that feeds these development programs, is all of this is the importance of this project. The process with the trinational program has had this trial and error process. It's been easier. Otherwise, everything would have been done. It hasn't been easy. There have been lessons learned, recommendations that will be present in the publication, and I believe that they can be replicated in other areas because there is no recipe. Each area is different, but the process is something that can be replicated in other areas. Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you, Pilar.
Hemos visto estos 3 casos.
We have seen these 3 cases. OMEC, hydrobiological resources, shared management, and the application on the field of this methodology to have an evidence of SDG contribution within the framework of
o de amortiguación.
protected areas. We're going to go to the third topic. This topic is very relevant and is related to advocacy and visibility of this process, this whole work. There is no doubt that the effort by the allies to make contributions visible, the results that have been achieved throughout these years has allowed for positioning and has allowed for advocacy through decisions at COP, through declarations, statements by ministers in very relevant spaces. Also, from the Amazon vision, there has been cooperation, South-South cooperation. There have been dialogue, exchange, and protected area management. So at this level of advocacy, to be able to understand the visibility, I would like to ask Pilar again about the relevance to position Red Parques, the vision of different spaces, such as the Forum of Ministers, the CBD. So why do you think it is important to continue positioning Red Parques and the Amazon vision within those spaces of global importance through technical cooperation? Thank you. The Forum of Ministers of Latin America and the Caribbean has followed this project since the beginning, and this has considered that the same forum has a political space that has been for many years has a representativity, great importance for the conservation of policies and environmental answers in our region, and also knowing that the forum is a context that for in multilateral agreements, they have a high level of adhesion in environmental policies for sustainable development. I think that is key to continue positioning there, presenting the findings and the results of the forum. So in fact, they will be presented in the following meeting and the month is coming. So I'd also like to say that the last meeting that took place in February 2021, the forum mentioned that, well, there was different efforts in the Latin American and Caribbean countries that they're doing to strengthen the capacity of the region to improve and apply good practices in protected areas, and at the same time to have the objectives established in international instruments. So this goes hand in hand with the work that is being conducted by IAPA project, especially with SDGs. There is valid knowledge being produced to advance in this aspect, and like we've said before, it's an innovating process, a pioneer process that is bringing a process that is replicable. To position the results at the Forum of Ministers has more knowledge. It also helps to join efforts, development visions, especially in trans-border areas, to support the consolidation of multilateral objectives. We also have to mention that within SDGs that have been working on, there are links with the convention in Rio, the Climate Change Convention, and it's related to, well, Objective 13. The Certification Convention is linked to 15.3, and the Convention of Biodiversity, for example, we have the goal 15.1, which is related to red list of threatened species. So SDGs has this big umbrella to contribute to other multilateral commitments going into the 2030 agenda We go into other multilateral commitments, and countries are already committed to advance. So this is a window to go in, and this is through data coherence, commitment coherence, effort coherence, policy coherence, so that there could be equitable progress in areas and communities. So going within the platform of forum of ministers, we go through that coherence and through that equitable progress. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pilar. These conclusions and these declarations in COP, the climate change, on climate change, some of you participated at COP, will also be the reference for the following Forum of Ministers. I think that IAPA, through collective efforts with Red Parques, can position these results that you have mentioned and results that colleagues mentioned as well, in these political advocacy and visibility messages. So normally in these conventions, examples, cases are sought so that we can advance in improvement in conservation and to avoid these impacts in climate change in the region. So from the IAPA project, we have built the different inputs throughout these years. These inputs are related to decisions, support as Alpha 2020, what the Alpha 2030 can be, the protocol, the IT goals, the strategic plan for the Amazon vision, a very relevant report that turns into a product and a result, key result for the new proposals at the continental level, and that is the protected planet. It's about 60 or 78 authors at the Latin American level. So I'd like to ask Paula, what has been the contribution of this technical input to strengthen protected areas integration?
Bueno, resaltar que todos estos esfuerzos que tú estás mencionando han sido
Thank you, Jose. All these efforts have been epic from the collaboration viewpoint. This is one of the characteristics that we can see throughout the Amazon vision and in general through Red Parques. I'd like to tell you that the Amazon vision had its inspiration on the need to strengthen capacities at countries to see their commitments and conservation goals from the international viewpoint, from the CBD within the national plans and the natural patrimony in general. So IAPA productions, the products, those are responses to that creating inspiration. We have not only been able to contribute to commit to the goals, but to transcend to other comprehension processes, the interdependence between protected areas and the territory that surrounds them. So this transcending that takes us to act within the Red Parques network makes us think about those regions beyond strategic ecoregions. So based on those analysis tools, the case of effectiveness protocols, so that we can have conclusions at the biome, but based on national metrics, or for example, that collection that has been so detailed and data for regional reports at the global scale and at our own productions. And with all the stages, they have been able to include participation scales and different stakeholders. That has been key, so that we have today within those strategic plans that will take us to incorporate changing needs, what we talked about some in the previous talk, but they are within the heart of elements of protected area governance. They are constant, and we have been able to identify them through the global tools. So this coordination, all those efforts, they've been able to have the region in this situation, in this collaborative action. It has been critical. It has had to be evaluated, what I'm doing well, what's missing. And I must acknowledge it, and I need to add, but we have acknowledged throughout all this work, this approach and this integrative objective. Those are our protected areas in a broader territorial context. So to close this intervention, I'd like to add something related to what Pilar said, related to advocacy within these international mechanisms. The Amazon vision, besides this creative inspiration, has a significant role not only in terms of biodiversity contribution, but also its articulating role with the climate agenda. There is this great potential to catalyze nature-based solutions to mitigate not only from adaptation, we typically work on this on forest conservations, but to have real alternatives to carbon markets, and we contribute with the compliance of the nationally determined contributions. So we have discussed this within the creation and when we go with the Amazon vision, but we are at that moment. We are at this key moment to take these dialogues to the following level. So this is what I can tell you right now, Jose. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paula. Just as Paula mentions, to be able to collect these lessons learned and to be able to move them to advocacy scenarios through political dialogue platforms and decision making at the global, regional, and local levels, and just close this panel, I'd like to ask Veronica from Red Parques a vision in the future. Veronica, what are the priority actions for the network, the Amazon vision, that need to be contributed in the technical platform in the future? Thank you, Jose. Considering the objective of Red Parques is to progressively increase technical capacity through knowledge and experience exchange. I think that there are three pillars, and I mention one by one, and I know that colleagues will contribute as well to get other perspectives, because we are planning the following work plan at Red Parques. So the main one would be to continue positioning internationally. So there will be negotiations and international agendas. So how? So through positioning. There have been several examples, Lima Declaration, the American the Caribbean, the COP 13. So position protected areas, Paula mentioned it, not as nature-based solutions as adaptation, but also mitigation, human well-being, and green recovery. So we have some recommendations as well that have been articulated from Red Parques to know what's missing. And one of them is a communication strategy, internal and external, an external one. So to communicate all the work that is being done. So some things are not related to the project and the network. So throughout the years, we do need to communicate so that it is not the Red Parques family, 19 countries, but new stakeholders, come in to play the game. So we need to strengthen this exchange. We also believe it is important to promote dialogue spaces to strengthen capacities and to promote solutions. One of those ideas are these one-to-one dialogues with countries determining topics, or the learning community through courses and through other regional webinars. And here I'd like to highlight a lesson learned. This is learning to be resilient. So with COVID told us that we need to act differently, we need to solve challenges, but to understand how things change, to understand that the capacity strengthening program brought this interest to strengthen governance beyond the Amazon vision. There was this group that said, I want to contribute. So that's how we started the creation of a new group, others that are more inactive. So to understand the dynamics of the work group, that's been very interesting, and also including new topics like OMIC has been mentioned. These products derived from data, COVID-19 lessons learned. We had never had that in a work plan. You know, we did never have that. Is to systematize all this knowledge, this dialogue that we have, so that we can move forward. And something else is that we, like Red Parque family, is 19. Probably later we'll have the colleagues from Guyana and Suriname. So it's not only these area systems, but we want these more allies. This exchange that is done outside protected areas. So the first part, our Francisco told us that protection goes beyond borders. He's not only speaking about Mexico or Colombia or Peru, but this is the regional vision, and we want to go beyond not national systems, but more partners to join. We'd like to highlight that all of the results we have very valuable allies. There are transversal issues as climate change, young people. So this would, well, it would be to celebrate Protected Areas Day in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we also have in Chile the join with of park rangers, women park rangers. So it's not only just one person to congratulate, because it's the whole, the joint support in the region. And lastly, to refer to one of these projects without precedence and with so many authors, the report, the plan. So this is not just a product. There are recommendations so that we have the roadmap at the regional level to see what we have to do. These kinds of messages that we have in the report, this is what we need to position in these documents at the international level. Quantitatively, in HE goals, we need to strengthen qualitative topics, representativeness, management effectiveness, and others. So here, I'm going back to the commissioner, national commissioner, we want to highlight social co-responsibility involving other stakeholders. It's not only the protected areas at the national level. So communities need to have this role, this crucial role in terms of conservation. And if you've not seen the product, you should look for it. We'll have the link in the chat, and so that we can pass on the floor to my colleagues. I'd like to end with a sentence that we have used so much. So without range markers, there is no protected areas, and without protected areas, there is no sustainable future. So thank you. And well, it's not only climate crisis, but social crisis. So I'll end here. Thank you. Just as you close your answer, the role of park rangers is key. This is strategic. They are the base for all the construction, for the network, and of course, protected area systems, the work that is done with allies. They have been accompanying this initiative for several years. IUCN, UN Environment, Red Parques, FAO. So you provide several elements to continue working. And I'd like very quickly for Paula to give an answer about the future vision. Same thing with Walter and Claudia, if possible, so that you motivate us with your vision on the future for this work on protected areas in Latin America, particularly in the Amazon. Paula? Thank you, Jose. Briefly, two things that come to my mind right now is that we have to strengthen that connection between the territory and the benefits that it provides to people in big cities. It needs to be more visible for all citizens, but have this deep appropriation from these protected area benefits. So about that inspiring vision that you would like to have at this moment,
We want to strengthen governance of the biomass, also of the governance of the network, Parques Improve Network, capitalize on those seeds that have been sown by the project. For example, those that have done with the real sector and the financial sector, so that we can build on that that's been built. We recognize what needs to be recognized, as Claudia mentioned, in the case of the OMEX, and we can then have a view that includes active livelihoods and benefits for people. That's my message right now. Thank you. Thank you, Paula. Claudia? Thank you, Jose. There are many topics and many priority actions to strengthen the park network and the Amazon vision. But I'd like highlight the role of communication, good communication internally and externally, to disclose and spread what we're doing, what the protected area system does, to favor well-being also within the systems of protected areas, so that the discussions that approach the experiences that we learn, they get to all levels of the national systems of protected areas. It's important to encourage other stakeholders to participate actively in the park network and the Amazon vision, so that we can continue to work like this, as Francisco put it. Everyone tasks, governments, communities, the private sector. I will encourage them more and more to join these initiatives. They are the conservation principles, and they aim at the sustainable growth of our city. And I like to highlight the important role of communication, to communicate the actions we take to make those contributions visible. And part of those actions we wanted to tell you that was captured by the lens of indigenous young people of Yazabala in the community Cruz Reservation in Peru. For us and to them, it was very significant to tell based on what they know and to show it through videos such as the one we're going to watch next. It was a very pretty training process held by the movie makers in Antoine in Peru, where they taught them the techniques to produce script, to conduct service. And this video we're going to watch is a result of that process to train them. And it's a hope. It's kind of a light to encourage young people to work with the new technologies, and especially to show the richness of the territory. So we're gonna watch the video. Traditional fishing. I am Miguel Conseco, my name. Something I saw the community. I'm a fisherman. I've been fishing. Yeah. Arrow. When I used to have it, I was fishing with that, like that. Used to fish like that. That's what I've done. I know how to do a true fisherman since I was 14 years old. To be a true fisherman. We didn't have all the materials, the net. We used to go on this boat like this. And we used to go there and fish with the oar and with the spear. And in the July dries out, and then we fish with baskets. With several people, we do this with women, children. They become true fishermen. And this is how we get the fish, the different types. When we get the products, the different types of fish, we consume them. We salt it and we sell it in the market, and we buy then sugar, rice, and oil. The other things we need to get to survive, to get the products we need. Maparate and dorado is the type of fish that we usually get. That's what the buyers buy. I have these materials, the arrow, the spear, and also the net. It's a bit network. This is what I am, a true fisherman. Before we used to have a lot more, but now we have few fish. We can only fish a little to be able to sell it. There's little fish, there's less fish. Yeah. We need to let them grow. The fish is scarce. We have to fish less and less. Just what we need to sell to survive.
Gracias por ese video tan...
Thank you very much for the video. It was very inspiring. We want to present this recognition of the peoples of the Amazon, the indigenous communities, the local communities, local peoples. We need to recognize, acknowledge their knowledge, their resistance, and to make sure that a big deal of the Amazon is protected in spite of the risk and the threats that they receive. The forest rangers, the technicians, many people, many stakeholders who've been part of this process. And of course, to conclude, I want to thank, of course, the main characters who have joined this process. Pilar from UN Environment, Commissioner Veronica, those who are not present though, but they supported the process and they believed, they trusted it. Paula, all her team, WWF, Walter from IUCN, everyone, each one of you. Thank you so much for this time. I think it's been very, very enriching with big challenges, big proposals, and I think that it's important that we continue this process as it's been said in the slogan, together in favor of protected areas. That's a slogan. It's our motto. I think we need to keep up that spirit, keep that proposal, and continue to build a road. I said this at the beginning of this webinar with you when we asked under the Caterpillar wonder whether there were not so many roads, there weren't any paths, or there weren't enough paths. But we've noticed there are possible paths, paths that we can build together collectively. I think that's the proposal. Maybe the words from the young environmentalists and our representation, these words teach us that we should actually go after new paths, different paths, but collectively. And I think that this webinar and your effort, your experience has encouraged us to move on. And to conclude, I want to thank you and I want to give the floor to Claudia. Thank you. I'm very pleased to see you again. Thank you very much, Jose, for your facilitation. I want to thank Veronica, Paula, and Walter for joining us. We know that this is just a small sample of this big team of people, what the IAPA project was about. There are many people behind each organization, from FAO in the regional office in Chile, WWF, with all the offices in the region, and UN Environment, also IUCN with the member network, of course the network, park network, and all the stakeholders. I know we are just a very small sample, but it's a big family. So I'd like to conclude today's webinar. It's been very enriching with a deep thank you note on behalf of the whole team, of the project team. I want to thank you, those who made this initiative possible. As we will see in the screen, you made this project grow. It's just a family of this project called the IAPA. It will continue to grow in the framework of the Amazon Vision and the Park Network. You know, this tree, we sowed it with discipline, and little by little, the trunk became stronger with the experiences from each country, with the commitment and then the enthusiasm of the stakeholders, the partners, the national systems of protected areas. We know today that since this tree of Amazon Vision, there are many, many more trees, thousands of trees in this big ecosystem that are aiming for sustainable future. As we see, this tree is an acai palm tree, is the result of the past conversation last Thursday with the members of the Amazon Vision, where each country contributed with their ideas from the root up to the fruit that we see today in the Amazon Vision. What we're left with today, and especially for those of you who continue fertilize, harvest, and nurture this initiative that is Amazon Vision, and of course, all the network, all the park network. Thank you. Thank you so much, really, because there always be willingness to work as a network and together in favor of protected areas. Last but not least, we know that many of you have questions or you are eager to know the final results of the project. So we will invite you in the coming days to check the website of Red Parques, the park network, where you will see the results, the different supplies, publications, the outcomes of the different stages, the 2 stages of the project. These webinars will also be there in our YouTube channel of Amazon Vision, so you can watch them later if you need it too. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you for participating, and we hope to meet again in the future. We wish you a great rest of the day, great afternoon to everyone, and see you soon.